Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Invitation to Puzzles, the series where we hope to invite you into the wonderful world of puzzles. We have here today a Thermo puzzle. I'll explain what that means in a minute. By FullDeck and missing a few cards. Let me explain the rules, and then if you want to give it a try, there's a link down below. So the way that thermos work is they always have a bulb, and then the numbers are supposed to increase strictly as you go along. So if this were a 7, this number would have to be at least an 8. And you might notice that that's going to run into some problems. Note they don't have to go strictly in order. So like 5, 7, 8 is fine. By which I mean, it doesn't have to be 6, 7, 8. They don't have to be a direct sequence. They just have to get bigger. But we have that. We have standard Sudoku rules. And I think that is all we have. So, good luck. I hope this goes well for you. And I'll go ahead and give it a try myself. Okay, so first tip is that 1s and 9s are quite difficult to put on thermometers. Namely, a 1 can only go in the bulb. And so if you look at, for example, where is 1 going in box 1, was the first thing that I asked myself. I saw there's actually only 2 places it can go. Namely, it can only go in one of those 2, and it can only go in one of those 2, which is quite interesting for reasons we'll talk about in a second. But it wasn't the perhaps best question. I think the best question to ask is actually about 9s, because 9s can only go on the tip of a thermo. And so if I look at column 1 and I ask myself where 9 goes, I think I just get to place the 9, because the only place here that is on the tip of a thermo is there. And there aren't any cells not on a thermo. So therefore, that is going to be a 9. When I ask about 9s in this column, I think I'm going to get 2 answers, unfortunately. I can at least mark that I know that the 9 in this box, I can corner mark it goes in one of these 2. Remember, by the way, these corner marks here, these mean that in this box, one of these 2 cells is a 1. One of these 2 cells is a 9. Okay, now the thing I saw that was kind of interesting to me was that, in fact, that bulb can't be 1. And so that's actually going to sort of push up this thermo a bit, and the 1 is going to have to live over in one of these 3 cells. I don't know if I want to mark that yet. I might or might not, but I do want to mark that 1 in this row, I know where it goes, at least roughly, because I can't put, again, the 1 partially along the thermo, and so the 1 has to be in one of these 2 cells only. Okay. It probably is worth talking about how one should go about using the fact that this can't be a 1 to mark up this thermometer. And so my way of doing this, and this is slightly different, I think, than how most people do it, is that I will go through the thermometer and I will mark, starting at the tip, starting at the bulb, what is the lowest this digit can be? And given that it can't be a 1, the lowest it can be is a 2. And then I'll sort of continue, propagate that upwards. So the lowest this can be is a 2, so the lowest this can be is a 3, then a 4, then a 5, then a 6, then a 7. Okay. Then now I'm sitting at the tip of the thermo, and so now I ask, what's the highest this cell can be? It could be a 9, and then I'll propagate that backwards. So the highest this can be an 8, a 7, a 6, a 5, and a 4. And so now what we have marked, if you look at it in each cell, is we have the highest digit that the cell can contain and the lowest digit the cell can contain, and you got to go fill in all the digits in between. So in this case, that goes 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that gives you sort of all the possibilities that can go in these cells. And I've mentioned before, I usually like, when I'm pencil marking something, I usually like to stick it down to when there's 3 possibilities for what that digit can be. Okay, so this meets that criteria. I noticed when I was doing my original scanning, by the way, I didn't actually mark this, 9 in this row is also restricted. 9 in this row only goes in one of those two cells. But that was also just by Sudoku on this 9. Just for practice, and because it might be useful, let's do the same marking on these two thermos. So if I start here and do the minimum, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the maximum will be 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So again, bulb minimum, and then from the tip back the maximum, and then fill in the gaps. So this can be 2, this can be 3. Sorry, that one can also be 3. These could be 4. These can be 5. These can be 6. These can be 7, and these can be 8. So, what did that get us, you might ask? And that is a very fair question. And I think if you squint carefully, I think you will see that it did get us some more digits in column 1. Namely, what you should look at here, what often is the thing that's most important to look at, isn't so much what digits are marked in these cells. That's helpful if you're looking for pairs and triples, which are quite common, and I'm sure we'll get some of those later. But often the thing you should look at is what doesn't appear. And so the digit that doesn't appear, I see in here, are 7 and 8 don't appear. And so that means that 7 and 8 in this column live down here somewhere. Well, I haven't marked this thermo yet, but I have a feeling this can't be a 7 or an 8. In fact, if you sort of count backwards, in fact, let's actually do it. Let's mark this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then this is at most 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And then you can fill in the middles like that. You see that, yeah, these are from only 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the 8 in the column, it can't go there because I would need to find a number between 8 and 9 to fit on the thermos. That has to be the 8, and that has to be the 7. Okay. And I mentioned about pairs and triples, but how about quadruples? If you look at these cells all take their values from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what that means is they need to contain the digits 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so that means that you can't put any more 1, 2, 3, 4s in this column. Or maybe you want to see it the other way. You could ask yourself, where does 5 go and where does 6 go in column 1? Well, 6 you'll see is marked in exactly one spot in column 1, and I've marked every cell, so I actually know that's a 6. And likewise, I know that's a 5 because now 5 is only marked. So you can either see the quad if you like seeing the quad, or you can see the hidden 6 and hidden 5. For whatever reason, my brain saw the hidden 8 and hidden 9 and then saw the quadruple rather than seeing the hidden 8, the hidden 9, and then the hidden 6 and the hidden 5. Your mileage may vary. You may have a more functional brain than mine. Okay, so that actually gives us a lot along here because now actually that's a 7, and 8, and a 9. And you'll notice that now this is a 5, just by sphenage. 4, 3, 2, 1. Going back like that. That's not an 8, that's not a 9. That's not a 5. Okay. And now these two cells, actually, I noticed because I was updating the pencil marks, those two are a 6, 7 pair, which means that can't be a 7 because, again, the logic is each of these cells can only have a 6 or a 7 in it. So one of them has the 6 and one of them has the 7. Unless I'm putting 6 in two of them or 7 in two of them, both of which would be problems. So therefore, that's an 8. Okay, I can do a little bit of pencil work updating. People like it when I do that, I'm told. Now we can play the hidden game again. Where does the 1 go in column 1? And so now the 1 in column 1 now only goes there. And now we can chase that 1, because notice we've got a corner marked 1 here looking right, basically saying I can't make any of these 1, or if you prefer, they're all marked and they can't be 1. None of these can be 1. And the 1 looks down here by Sudoku, so actually the 1 in this box is actually just placed, if you are into that sort of thing. Let's see. So we've got all of that. And so now I've got to put over here a 1, a 2. So the 2 is very interesting. So this box needs a 2. And the 2, if you look at it, can only go in one of these two cells because of this 2 looking over. So these two are, in fact, actually a 1-2 pair. And so what I did there is something you'll see a lot, which is basically I said, I can corner mark the 2 in the same two cells that I corner marked the 1. But that means these two cells need to have a 1 and a 2, which means I can actually sort of convert the corner marks to the superior center marks, which are usually a little bit better. And then I can now fill in that this is a 3 or a 4, owing to the fact that those are the only things left in the box. Okay, so does that 3-4 pair do anything super exciting? I don't think so. Okay, what numbers have I not put in this box? I have not put a 9 in this box. That was probably the easier thing, actually, for me to say, rather than the various chicanery over here. Where does 9 go in box 3? It now only goes there. And hence the 1 goes there, the 2 goes there, and the 1 goes there. So if you want your time back, you can go back and, I don't know, get a time machine and not watch the explanation of me doing the more convoluted thing that I did to put these various pieces here. That makes this cell a 6 or a 7. Oh, but that's actually very interesting, because if I make it a 7, the world falls apart. Namely, why do I say the world falls apart? Well, if I make this a 7, I need to put a number here that's bigger than 7. And there's a lot of those. I mean, in the fullness of the universe. In Sudoku digits, there's 2 of them, namely 8 and 9, but you'll notice that 8 and 9 have the problem that neither of them exist in row 3 anymore. So this just can't be a 7. This has to be a 6. But now this number needs to be bigger than 6, of which my options are 7, 8, and 9, but the only one actually available is 7. Okay, so I can do that, and now these two are just a pair. One of which is a 1. Well, the 1 doesn't go there. The 1 goes there. And then we've got the 2, 3, 4, and now this digit is a 5. Okay, and now that has done a lot of damage downstairs, because you see the 1 was corner marked into one of these two cells, and therefore that's the 1. This has become a 6, meaning that's not a 6. And notice when I say this isn't a 6, actually it now also percolates upwards and says this isn't a 7 either. So this isn't a 6. And so this not being a 6 actually percolates backwards. It says this isn't a 5 anymore, and this isn't a 4 anymore. So that does some further damage over there. This can't be a 6 anymore. And now if you squint at this row, you now have a 4-5 pair. Which looks at this cell, meaning that that cell has to be a 3, and that cell, therefore, has to be a 2, because we've got the 4 and the 5 already. And then what's left in the row are 7, 8, and 9, so these are from 7, 8, 9 only. Oh, by the way, that 2 looked up and gave me the 3, the 4, and the 3 over there. Okay. I am seeing that if I look at this column, I need to put a 5 and a 6 in it. In particular, I need to put a 6 in it, and I think there's only one place I can really put a 6. So I can't put a 6 here, because there's already a 6 there, and I don't think I can put a 6 here either. Which might take a second to see, but I can't put a 6 here either because there aren't 2 numbers less than 6 for me to put on the Thermo. 1, 2, 3, and 4 already disappeared. So in fact, actually, that's the only place. We can call that a naked 6 if you want. Or sorry, a hidden 6 if you want. Sorry, I'm not helping you learn Sudoku terminology if I then say the wrong one. So this number is bigger than 6, and it's not a 7, so this is an 8 or a 9. And that 8, 9 pairs up with this 8, 9 to tell me that that is a 7. And therefore that for the column is the 5, which makes that the 4, the 3, and the 2 in the box. Is that the 5 over there? Okay, which means that's not a 6. These are an 8-9 pair. Very helpful, very helpful. Okay, so I see that the 1 in box 5 is actually a little bit restricted by Sudoku. And by a little bit restricted by Sudoku, I was going to put a corner mark, but it's actually a lot restricted by Sudoku because these various ones look at it, and you're not putting it as the third element along a thermo. So actually, it's there. And so now the 1 in this box sees those two ones, and it isn't the fourth digit along a thermo, so it's there. So we get all of that. Okay. This is an 8 or a 9, I believe, just by... Oh, it's the 8, actually. If you just look at this box, we need 8 and 9, and the 8 is placed here. So that's the 8, that's the 9, that's the 9 over here. Okay, now I can do a corner mark just because I want to. In this box, where does the 9 go? Well, it can't go in any of these cells. It can't go in those cells. It can't go there. So the 9 actually has to go in one of these two cells. And the reason why that's useful is that those corner marks, so to speak, what people will say is point. And all that means is one of these two is a 9, and whichever one it is, those two certainly aren't 9. And I already know those two aren't 9. So where does the 9 go in box 4? Only there. Okay. These are a 4, 6, a 7, and an 8. Not a 7, actually. One of those two is a 7. That doesn't look super useful. One of those two is a 4. Okay, am I marking this thermo? Yes. Well, I'm not marking it, but what I'm asking myself is the question, where does 2 go in this box in light of Sudokuage? And namely, in light of Sudokuage, what I'm seeing is that the 2 needs to go somewhere in this row. Seemingly, it can go anywhere, except that if you think about it, this is the furthest along the thermo I could possibly put the 2, so actually the 2 is placed. Okay, and so now... Yeah, I'm debating... Oh, now I should just ask where 5 goes, ignoring everything except Sudoku, and so the 5, in fact, is placed there. Okay, and so this digit can only be a 6 or a 7, because it has to be bigger than 5, and it's not an 8 or a 9. And if you want, you can pretend I said, because it's bigger than 5 and it's not an 8 or a 9, and highlighted that 8, 9 instead, whichever one works for you. Okay, so that gives me a 6, 7 pair, and places the 4 in this row in its own weird way. Okay, and so what do I have left? I've got a 3, and then a 6, 7, and a 4, I guess, are the digits that I have left. I don't think I want to mark that yet. I think before I get that far, I think I want to mark these in this box. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We need a 5. We've got the 6. We need a 7 and an 8. We don't get a 9. Okay, so that is not an 8. That's not a 7. Okay. 5 seems a little bit low, but maybe it's possible. What are these digits, I guess, is another good question. They are 2, 3, 4, and... Oh, it's better be 2, 3, and 4 only. 5, 6, 7, yeah. It's like, that's already enough digits, so probably that's it. Okay, so these are 2, 3, and 4. Interesting. Okay. So what that tells me... I guess what it tells me is that 2 in the row goes either there or there. That doesn't seem incredibly helpful. This number here certainly is less than 3 different numbers, which means that it's at most 6. I don't know how excited I am to pencil mark that this is at most 6. I might become excited. Let's mark these triples, because these triples look actually way better than anything else that I've looked at in the past, I don't know, 3 minutes of the puzzle. So these are a 2, a 3, and an 8. It's not a 2. Now, interestingly, I can't put an 8 in either of these cells. Because if I put an 8 in either of these cells, then I have to make both of these 9s, which is a problem. So that's the 8. Also, a thing that is easy to miss for me, but that you should notice, is if you ever have, like, center marked a pair across a thermo, you know what order it goes in, so the 2 has to be before the 3. Okay, and what about these cells? These are 4, 6, and 9. Okay, well, that one at least isn't a 9. I'm willing to go that far. And this one can't be a 4 because there wouldn't be anything less than it. But that still has some optionality. I do think I should have asked a bit ago where the 9 in column 5 went. And the reason for that is that it can only go here. What I saw, actually, is I saw that the 9s in these 2 boxes were in this sort of arrangement. Basically meaning that the 9 in column 5 wasn't placed yet, so I should ask where the 9 in column 5 was going. I always call this a Zackwing, after everyone's favorite prima donna Sudoku's penguin. Don't tell him I said that. And so the 9 needs to go on one of these, but not that one. Now, a sane individual would say not that one because there's a 9 over there, but what I actually saw was not 9 because there's an 8-9 pair, but whichever makes that a 9 and that an 8. Okay, so a bunch of different ways you can see it, whichever way you would like. Now this is getting tight, because there's only 4 digits left in here. And those digits include a 3, a 4, and a 6, 7. I guess you could say that's 4 digits, depending on whether you say 6, 7 as though it's 1 digit. I said it as though it was 1 digit only because of that. Okay, now I do see this digit can't be a 7 for the reason that that can't be an 8. And that would have to do that. This one can't be a 6, actually, because the biggest this digit can be is 7, and then I don't have anything to put between the 6 and the 7, so this is actually only a 3 or a 4. Okay, and that's useful because it starts to put some bound on what this digit could possibly be. Namely, this digit has to be less than 4, certainly, so it has to be a 1, 2, or a 3, but conveniently it's not a 1 or a 3, so it's just a 2. So we can do that. There's my 2. Okay, this digit's at least a 4. And I think it can only be a 4 or a 5, actually, because it's at least a 4, but it has to be less than this number, so it has to be less than 7, but it can't be, so it's at least a 4, it's less than that, and it can't be 6. So I think this can only be 4 or 5. Let's see. This row does need a 3. Okay, so here's a good point. This row needs a 3, but it can't go there because this number is at least 3, so this one's at least 4. So that, in fact, is the 3 for the row. And these, if you just write out what's left in the row, it's 4, 5, and 7. That one seems not to be the 5. It is a 4 or a 7. Now, here's a sneaky trick that I'm sure you don't need, but that I'm going to tell you because it shows up in a lot of puzzles. This can't be a 6. And your brain might look at that and go, well, sure it could. That can be a 7. And that's true. That can be a 7. But if this is a 6, then that is a 7, and now this is a nothing. And that's the problem, is that actually these being 6, 7 actually breaks this cell. So actually in a sort of more complicated thermo puzzles, you're going to see that kind of deduction pop up a lot, where sort of choosing a particular value will break another cell. So that's not a 6, which has made these into a 3, 4 pair, meaning that's not a 4. And in fact, the row just has 6, 7, and 8 left. And that's quite nice, actually, because in my 6, 7, and 8, this digit seems only able to be a 6. I probably could have noticed that some time ago if I paid attention. That was probably the way around doing the thing I just did with the who's a what's it over there. Okay, this is a 4 or a 9, which means there's definitely a 6 on this Thermo. Unfortunately, knowing that there's a 6 on the Thermo, I don't think helps an enormous amount. Okay, what can this digit be now, actually? So it can't be 1, 2, 3. And remember I said it's at most 6 because there need to be 3 digits bigger than it. So it's only 4, 5, or 6, and it's actually not even able to be 5. Because if it were 5, that would be a second 5 for the column. And now, strangely enough, that's a 4-6 pair, so this digit is a naked single. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. This is an 8. Which at least I guess gives me a 5. Oh, actually, that is useful. I was thinking the 8 wasn't going to be useful at all, because it doesn't help me sort out this, but the 8 is useful in that it tells me that's a 7 and that's an 8. So now that's a 4 and that's a 3, that's a 5 and that's a 4, that's a 6, a 9, a 4, and a 6. That's a 9. That is a 6, so that's a 7 is the only thing that can go there. That's good construction. This isn't really a Sudoku construction series, but I'll mention it's very good construction to put this here, so at the end it basically plunks in all the digits. And so this is the point in the puzzle where I say, and at this point it's just Sudoku, and you'll notice at this point the puzzle's also basically done, which is what I tend to think I want to happen in most puzzles. Let's see, one of these is a 4, and I don't know which one. The other is a 6, and I do know which one, so that tells me which one is the 4. That's a 5 and a 2. Very nice. Alrighty, well, that is all for today's Invitation to Puzzles. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back soon with more, so thanks for watching. Bye for now.